everybody. I'm Chris. I'm the CTO and co-founder of statusaccounts.com. We are a customer accounts platform for e-commerce. So essentially what we do is, you go to a store. What's a store you guys shop at? One example. Target. Not a great example because they have an awesome account experience. It's actually one of the people we're inspired by. But do you guys know Allbirds by any chance? The cloth shoes or chubby shorts? Dang, come on. All right. Smaller e-commerce stores, you go to the account page and you see maybe a transaction history. It's just everything you bought. And that real estate's on every store. You go to a homepage, you see that profile in the top right corner, completely useless. We had the notion that maybe we could have a more personal relationship with the customer and make a great experience, something like, maybe I'm abusing this a little bit, but like TikTok, where you go to it and you always have fresh content, you have new things, and now they even have a shopping experience. Bringing that to stores like, what do you guys know? Anyway, we'll find some. We got some brands on here, maybe you'll go, oh, that one. But what I want to talk about is getting from A to B, right? Bringing your ideas to life. If you guys are all learning things right now that will help you execute and create the things in your head and build them in real life. I've gotten the privilege to do that a couple times, and I think just sharing some of that information might be helpful. And at the end of this, I'd love to hear any ideas you guys, obviously Q&A feedback, but I'll have my email on here. Any ideas you guys have, please send them my way, and I'd love to help you with them. So bringing your ideas to life. That's me, Chris Pinchot. I didn't go to the Ohio State University. I went to Ohio University. Not as cool, but it was a great experience, had a fun time. My degree was in design, did no coding in college. That's not true. I played around a little, but mostly was doing graphic design work. I loved being an art kid. Right after I graduated, I tried to start an animation company. This is not it. This is the thing after, but didn't work out. Had no money, was living in Akron, Ohio, in a house that was considered dilapidated, like truly, by the city. And then I got a job offer from a friend of mine who's in Columbus at a place called Rocket Code. Rocket Code was one of the first Shopify agencies. Do you guys know Shopify? Any chance? Yeah. So we're all Shopify. My whole career experience is in Shopify. It's an amazing platform, especially for developers. This is one of the first agencies. They helped companies basically have a better footprint on the internet world. All the Shopify templates were really basic back then. You couldn't do much customization, so you had to hire developers to do it. This is where I cut my teeth, and probably 6 months in, after not knowing anything about code, starting there, lying, saying, I know HTML pretty well. I had some amazing mentors. They really, I'll say this, my first project, I go and present it, and dead silence. Everyone was like, this is all you did? But they taught me a lot in 6 months, and in 6 months, I had ended up really falling in love with front-end development, working heavily with Vue.js was my bread and butter, started to make a name for myself there. And so much so that the head of Rocket Code had a small pet project. Maybe you'll recognize this, but Loop Returns, it's a bigger startup in Columbus. It's maybe the biggest e-commerce startup in Columbus now. From Rocket Code, they had a prototype for a platform where these companies needed a way for customers to return something they bought. Back in the day, there was no portal. It was usually, here's an email address, message us if you have a problem, and maybe we'll send out a packing slip for you to send something back. We automated that. It doesn't sound like a sexy problem, but you'll find that if you find a problem worth solving, you might fall in love with it, even if it's boring. This ended up getting $500 million in funding. I don't know how. I was one of the first engineers out of 3. And it was a wild ride. And after 4 years of being there, I decided, my equity had vested. It was time to try something else. And I went and freelance. I started maybe 4 different apps that all failed horribly. Nothing in e-commerce. It was just random stuff I was passionate about, but I wasn't focused on solving a problem. And that leads to here. I talked to some people who were also leaving Loop, the best designer I knew, the best salesman I knew, and they said, hey, we need a developer or I went to them and said, hey, we need a way to build out this idea we kind of had at Loop and we've been spinning around for customer accounts, and would you be interested? And we all said, yeah, and just kind of banded together. And now $2.5 million in funding later, we have a company called Status. We're 6 employees, 1 contractor. Things are going really well. That's a bit of background. This is what Status looks like. I don't know if you guys, well, here, let's do this, please. Any of these look familiar?
Ridge?
Ridge?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Ridge does a lot of promotion with like podcasts and stuff. They're sick. I love them. Kish?
Kish.
Yeah?
I've seen the logo, I don't know what it is.
Well, we're just starting out. But we have some decent names already. Homage, I'm sure you guys have seen, Columbus-based. They do a lot of sports apparel. Up West, subsidiary of Express, they make comfy clothing. Really grateful to have all these big brands, and honestly came from a lot of our connections with Loop. A lot of these people did their returns with Loop. Anyway, this is what we look like, the better account experience. We put everything in one place, no more logging in the different portals, no more trying to find a place to track my order. You have one centralized location where your customer can have a great experience with your company, a great place to come back and experience new content. So that's all my stuff. I'm a little long-winded. It's been a wild ride, but my passion genuinely comes from creating new ideas and getting ideas from, some kid joking around on his computer to an actual fundable idea, or not even funding, using profit to scale your way into success. And I'm going to start with 3 things you need to build a company from A to B and get started. And I'll start with the lowest priority first. And this might be funny, but genuinely, I believe the idea is the least important thing and the thing that's most likely to change. This is something we say every day at Status. Ideas are free, and it's a way to remind ourselves that everything we say doesn't hold weight. If I'm giving you an idea, I'm not dying by it. Strong opinions loosely held is another motto we use a lot, but genuinely, we'll be talking in stand-up, and someone will come in with this like blazing hot idea. Oh, I just thought we could do this. And they'll preface typically by saying out loud, ideas are free. What if we did this? And it's a great way to kind of disarm everyone and say like, hey, if you say no to me, it's fine. And if you say yes, I'm going to be happy. But everyone's got ideas. They're not the most important thing in a company. Don't count on them. They're going to change. They're going to evolve. You need to be open to that if you want to see your grand idea, the bigger picture, come to life. And also don't reject any of them. You need to listen to what other people are saying. You need to always be malleable. You get the idea. They're free. And evolve. The next part of an idea. Are you different? Is the idea you have actually different, or are you just thinking someone else across the world has already started on, they're a year into it, and you just haven't heard of them yet? You need to really vet if your idea stands out. A lot of people hate this part so much, including me, because this is the bubble popping phase. This is when you actually go in and start analyzing your idea and looking around at you and saying, does this already exist? Is this actually a novel experience? Am I actually creating something here? And you might find out that, that really cool book writing app that you're making. There's something called Wattpad that does it way better. If you guys have ever heard of that, that was one of my ideas. Decentralized book writing, very dumb. Maybe you'll find out it wasn't worth chasing. Why this is important? It is completely free to have this experience at the beginning steps and be able to pivot early. You don't have to worry about taking $1 million from an investor, making sure you have to return that, and all the stress of having employees. At this step, you can vet if your idea is actually worth chasing. It doesn't matter to you. You're not going to enjoy it if you don't care about it. That's the truth. And something that was really important to me was becoming a better developer at Loop. That's what I was chasing. That's what made me dive headfirst into it and work night and day to try to get that done. And now this ride is completely different. This is something I want to get better with talking to investors. I want to get better at running a business, and that's what status is to me. I know what I care about, and I know why I wake up every morning to do this thing. And notoriety doesn't matter. I will say, and this is you guys know who Marcus Aurelius is? He's one of the great emperors. He talks about this at length, that popularity is one of the worst things to chase because you'll never feel fulfilled. And I see a lot of people, especially in the tech space, chasing a director role or wanting to start a company. If that's the reason, I drop it now. It never feels good. That part is just work, and you'll never get what you want. So ideas are free. Are you different? Doesn't matter. I'll take a breath here. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts, feelings? Let me just keep going.
I had a business idea and I did a lot of research, and eventually I found a company that was doing the exact same thing, and it did not work.
That is a very painful experience, and I feel for you. Is anyone else trying to fiddle with something? Yeah.
I tried to do that in high school. Have you ever been to Donato's?
Yeah.
I assume, yeah. So they have like that party cut.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, instead of using like one cutter and like doing all that, let's just make it so you just have the one cut.
Oh, nice.
And then I looked it up online, and someone basically already did it.
Did you have to deal with like manufacturing and stuff too? That sounds like a
it was like a Genius Hour project, so I never actually
Nice.
I could have 3D printed it, but it was
cool.
like at a certain point I'm like, man, do I even commit to this? It's already done.
Dude, yeah, many ideas are squashed, but honestly, it's way better to squash them early and move on to the next thing rather than stuck on something that's not gonna work. All right, second most important thing, execution. That's why you guys are in college right now, I think, is you're gaining the skills to execute. Most people can't do this. Most people have a really tough time actually taking an idea and bringing it to life. And if you get really good at doing that, you become unstoppable. Everyone wants to work with you, whether you're specialized in something, whether you're a great communicator, whatever your execution ability is a superpower once you head out into the real world. So parts of execution are, who do you need to make this happen? You just want to make sure that whatever you're doing, not when you start, it's always free to play around alone and kind of just chase an idea once you've vetted it. But you want to start taking account of what you actually need to make this happen. What I mean by that is like, what skills? Right now in this day and age, especially for a tech company, biggest priority is typically developers. They're very high in demand. They're hard to find. Hiring is very difficult for developers. And they also know that they kind of own you. So every time you go into a discussion, you're like, well, I could work remotely for someone on the West Coast and make $300K. Why would I work for you in Columbus and want to go into the office, which isn't a requirement, but we encourage it because we like camaraderie. What skills? You just want to make sure you're accounting for everything that's needed. What resources? Again, I'll use tech companies as an example. It's what I know. Don't need shit. You need a few computers, some telephones. Really low overhead. That's why tech companies typically become so profitable. Don't need much, just need the ability to make software. But for other company ideas, like I was just saying, for the pizza cutter, manufacturing, all that, resources are very important to account for, and which people. So this doesn't mean skill sets alone. It could mean connections, investors, money. Figuring out who you need to make something happen is crucial. And I'll say, like I was saying with status, I couldn't do it alone. I'm a developer. Technically, I could build this stuff alone. But on my team now with an amazing designer, an amazing salesperson, which are all my partners in the company, it took an idea that right now, if I did it alone, might be making $10,000 a month and maybe a great hobby business to an actual big business that employs people, gives people careers, and is bigger than anything I could have done alone. Are you the person to make this happen? So this is another part of execution that I really don't like. And it's a little bit of theater, but it's mostly doing what you say you're going to do. Becoming a reliable person and becoming known for being a reliable person, because your peers talk. It is a lot. It's probably the easiest way to earn trust is if you don't have to tell people to trust you. If that people in the room will say, "Oh, that guy does what he says he's going to do," like being on time for a talk. Yikes. So, do I trust you? This comes up, believe it or not. You think of a boardroom, you think of an investor, and I don't know what you think of, but it's not what I thought. You go in and it's a lot of emotional shit. It's a lot of like, can I trust you to do this? I just gave you $1 million. Can you do this? And you have to look them in the eye and be confident and say, yeah, I can pull this off. And you need to earn that trust. And when you do, it makes building a company a lot more fun than being under the gun. Other things about, are you the person? Do you have the credentials? You do what you say you're going to do, and do I like you? That's a little bit of the theater part. And I hate it, but it's true. You have to be likable. You have to go in and be presentable and show that you're serious about bringing something to life. Because again, especially people on the investment side are going to look at you and say, this might not be the guy, and they'll walk away. You got to earn that, and you got to know how to do that. It's something I'm working on heavily, but it's a good skill to have. This one's fun, and someone gave me this example. Execution is about predicting the future. And that sounds hokey and stupid. No one can predict the future. But you start learning more about this and you find out people can. And the people that can look farther in the future get more opportunity. This is what I mean by that. Messed up the slide, but a barista is paid to make a decision of impact that day. Store manager takes account of the week. District manager will take account of the month. The VP, the year, the executive, the decade. These are the timetables that these, at a larger enterprise company rather, this is what they're paid to do, to predict this. The farther you get down that list in your career, the more chances you'll have to be a part of the decision-making in either of these processes, in any of these processes. A big goal of many people's career is, frankly, just to get better at this part. What do you need to make this happen? Are you the person to make this happen? Does it matter to you? All very, very important, kind of zoomed out, a zoomed out look at execution. There's more to it. There's specifics, there's specific skills, there's whatever. These, I believe, are the most important pieces. Well, I spoiled it. Any questions on execution, comments, concerns?
Can you share that the slide? Can you share that the slide for this later?
Yeah, for sure. No doubt.
So if you're funding a company, I know there's a lot of work going on the business side to start the actual company, to involve investors. What is the proper way to, like, if I'm the software engineer and I'm starting a software company, should I be the CEO?
Fantastic question. This idea originally, I'll just give an anecdotal example. This idea was originally mine. It started from a freelance project when I was running out of money after Loop. Someone needed help with their customer account. I said, oh, we thought of this before. I should tap my other friends. We talked about it, and I knew my skill set was not talking to people. It really, I've never been in a sales role. It's really an art. If you've seen salesmen do their thing, it is magic sometimes. I knew my one friend always wanted a CEO role. He had spent his entire career building relationships, connections with people, and being very good at talking. It was a debate. It was like there was a moment of, should the tech guy be the CEO or should the salesman be the CEO? It's a case-by-case situation. For me, I knew that he was a product-driven CEO or would be a product-driven CEO. He wouldn't go and sell the app. He wouldn't sell something the app didn't do yet and come back to me and say, Chris, you got to build this and it's going to make us $1 million this year. And that was really important to me. And that's a special quality. Saw that in him and said, you know, you should definitely take it. But I think there's situations where it could have gone the other way. It depends. The most important thing is who's going to follow you and why. And that's like the main role of a CEO. Really, if they do anything, it's that. And yeah, he was definitely better fit.
So you've been planning what Status is going to do over the next decade then, if you're predicting the future?
Oh yeah. So I'm sure everyone here is hot on AI, what it can do, what's being unveiled right now. I'm certainly not building it from scratch. I've tried. It is tough for it to do what you want it to do. But a lot of people claim in e-commerce that they have some engine. Look up like AI recommendation engines in e-commerce. They're all bullshit. It's all like, here's the most purchased product, like simple analytics. We ask the customer if we can have their information. We don't take it from them. We don't steal it. We're taking a new approach of saying, hey, if you want to give us information, we might be able to provide you some better solutions. So we have a bank of over 1 billion customer interactions right now that we're going to stick AI on and then figure out better product recommendations essentially for the customer, and not just product recommendations, but content, everything in the middle, so they can enjoy going to a website and it's not just a storefront. It's actually something they can experience and have fun with. Part of the grand vision. My favorite part. I'm really excited. We're starting at the end of this quarter to build that out. So I'm really pumped. Cool. Lastly, the least fun part and the reason businesses don't get made, and another one that is tough to talk about, but it is really important, and the reason business school is still a thing, the market. You can crush the idea and the execution. You can have the best idea in the world. You can execute it perfectly. If no one's buying it, it fails. And that, that's capitalism. And that's a hard truth that we've learned with Status even, because like I said originally, no one cared about the customer account, right? It was just dying on the page. So I go to the owner of a store and I say, you really got to care about this thing. And he goes, why? It's not a problem. What are you solving? I don't really understand. And it took us a while to really get into the nitty gritty of having the elevator pitch that works for the business owner. What problem are we solving? Things you want to analyze with a business: market size, make this one quick, basics of a company. I need to acquire X customers, need to charge them Y per year, analyze against the costs. That is how you build a successful company. It really is that easy. And then you have to find out, do these customers even exist? Yeah, I would love 100,000 stores using Status. What is the actual demographic of Shopify? How many people are willing to pay this much for an account product? All the questions we ask ourselves still to this day to try and analyze a constantly fluctuating number of what is our total addressable market. Market desire. This is gauging whether the market actually wants what you're giving it. And you'll hear the term timing the market. Does it actually work? It doesn't. You just got to take it where it's at and then figure out whether it wants what you're selling. Okay, so you're making something different. Why do we want something different? We hear that a lot. Why would we want to change this? It works fine. The answer to that is you're either making something easier, making something less expensive, making something new. The last one is so fucking hard. If you need to convince someone that something they've never used before is valuable, it's very hard. But if you go and say, how much did you spend on gas this week? 40 bucks. What if I made it 30? Okay. It's very simple to say yes to. Or, hey, you're lifting weights. What if it felt like you were lifting 20 pounds instead of 30? Wouldn't that be nice? That'd be making it easier. Really bad analogy, but you get what I'm trying to say. Making sure the market wants what you're selling is very, very important. The most important, frankly. And the last thing, and this is the thing I really started to learn with Status that changed my perspective on companies, then it's time. You only have so much, and you have to use it wisely, and you have to make sure that what you're doing fits in the time slot of what's realistic. So if you are 10 guys sitting in a basement and you say, we're going to be Apple by this time next year, or we'll be Apple in 10 years, whatever unrealistic expectation you have, is there a model that can actually prove that in a certain amount of time? When do you need to do this by? So use Status as an example. We released to the market at the end of last year. We had a serious talk of, as soon as this is released, we are going to have competitors that are going to be copying us. No one is doing accounts the way we're doing it. We have a lot of people who are in the sphere but haven't found the unlock that we have. When it's out there, there will be copycats, and how quickly can they copy it? You're constantly racing time. And there's the other part of time. If you have a bunch of cash in the bank and you only have 3 people and the market's not ready for something, go slow. Use the money wisely. Slowly build something up secretly in the background. And then when it's time, release. So time is super important. How long does it take to build? How long until someone catches up? Yeah, you're constantly in competition with everyone else. If you're lucky enough to have a great idea, great execution, this is the thing you have to be worried about the most. And it's the reason a lot of people in startups talk about having 12-hour days, not having weekends, building something that will truly bring value. Anyway, I'm Chris. That's my email. Feel free to write it down, but I'll send out the notes as well. I love building things. It's the reason I do what I do. And if anyone wants to talk, wants to shoot ideas at me, or just wants help, let me know. And thanks for listening. That was fun. Cool. Yeah, but any questions for me? I'm happy to answer anything. We go over anything.
How do you get in touch with investors?
It's a great question. I've learned a few tricks. The first thing I'll say is Joe Joe is the salesman of our team, CEO. He spent a lot of his career making connections with people while he was selling for Loop. He ended up rubbing shoulders with a lot of these people, and he'd save their email. Getting good at conversing, being a part of the conversation, and making sure you record everyone's name, email, phone number is a great skill. But the real unlock is after he had the first few calls with investors, at the end of every call, he'd say, even if it was a no, right? He'd say, do you know anyone who'd be interested in this? You'll find out that it's an investor's job to connect with other investors, connect you with other investors. So never ending a phone call without asking for something is a huge, huge trick that you can take with you anywhere, not just with investors, but always make sure you're asking for a next step, something else, and you'll get something from that. People want to help you.
Was there a time when you like maybe established maybe another project where you thought you were going to stop or you weren't going to continue with it, and why did you continue or what?
Yeah. There's been, so we've had a lot of linear success. It's been a lot of win after win. We've never really had any huge blows, but we were nervous about the speed that we were going. And there was a couple times there where we thought, maybe this won't work out. Maybe we won't find the merchants. That's what it really came down to. We were dedicated to the idea, but we didn't know if the market was really ready for it. We were doing a lot of this, making something new. And creating a category is really hard to convince people to step over to it. But we crested that wave and kept going, but it was tough. There's a lot of conversations, especially early on, if this was like the right approach. But I will say, really confident in the team we have, a lot of just really, really talented people. So we knew even if this idea didn't work, we'd pivot as a group and move to something else. So super important to find your people.
So you said it was hard to pitch the new idea. So what was your pitch for this?
Uh,
How'd you get around that?
So there was one really good one Joe did, and it still didn't work, but I still like talking about it. He would take a screenshot of the account page, and then he'd have our designer put in all the imagery and pictures from that company onto, I wonder if I have an example. I'll bring it up later if I do. I'm getting out of this chair. This is crazy. But we'd send over a before and after, and Joe's really good at this, of like, hey, look at what all your best customers are seeing, because statistically your best customers like to log in. Look at what they're seeing and look at what they could be seeing, and we're going to charge you $200 a month. And they just would go, all right, we'll talk. And that would be enough to get in the room. The big shift we had recently is realizing a lot of e-commerce is marketing. It's not about having the best product or, it's not about having the best product. It's about reaching as many people as you can with that product. That's how you make the most money. It's how you make the most margin. And all the information we're gathering, we can use to leverage for actually personalized emails. I mean, how many of you guys get spammed every day by some company that's like, just for you, 10% off? It's bullshit. We all know it's bullshit, and they still do it because it works 2% of the time, and it's free, essentially. An email costs nothing. We actually are creating a system to allow these merchants to say, hey, Alex, we noticed you bought this thing, or we noticed you left this thing in your cart and you never bought it. We're actually running a sale. We wanted to let you know. And it's not some hokey tactic. It's actually automation, but true personalization. And that's really worked. It's got people in the door, for sure.
I tried, like, for a project I was working on, I tried to reach out to a lot of YouTubers. I got like all this information, and I tried to write these personalized emails. It ended up being a hassle. It took me so much time, and eventually I was just like, I just created a template email and was like, send everything out.
Yeah, it's about how many times at bat, typically. Personally, I've failed so many times, and like, you can't really avoid that. So making sure you're at bat as much as possible just for a chance of swing is very important. So, sorry.
What are some future ideas you have in the pipeline, and like what's your rationale behind them?
What are some future ideas we have in the pipeline?
Yeah, like what's your rationale behind them?
Do you mean me personally or the company?
I guess both.
Me personally, I have a book that is you guys use Notion at all?
Oh yeah.
Notion 6. I have an app for every emoji page. And every time I think of an app, I tie it to an emoji, and like I have a list of like 300 business plans that are just like, as soon as I'm ready, I'm gonna go and chase that. I do that for fun. For the business, we really vet our ideas by two things. We look at user analytics is the first one. We see what users engage with the most. We figure out why they're engaging with it, if it leads to a purchase, because that will define it as valuable, or if they interact a lot and don't purchase, that's also very valuable, because then they're invested, they just either don't have the money or the time or are scared to pull the trigger. Maybe they need that extra 10% off. So user analytics is one side. The other side is merchant feedback. There are some things high value merchants just need. If we're getting paid $3,000 a month by a company and they say, we'd love for this copy to be editable and we'd love to change this every week, we go, okay, we can put that in. Yeah, really user feedback, merchant feedback, and just that's a way to keep your ear to the market, really. Sorry.
Yeah, so like say I don't know, say I know nothing about business and like I want to start tomorrow. What would you say, like how did you learn the ins and outs of business? Like how do you even know what to do? Basically.
I got really lucky. I took that first job and was around a couple really entrepreneurial people, specifically the owner of the agency I talked about, Jonathan Poma, who's now the CEO of Loop Returns. He's always been a friend as much as a colleague, and would just teach me little bits here and there. And I would, I've always wanted to start companies when I was like young, so I think it's just being around people that are doing what you want to do and learning from them. Mentors, I mean, you skip so many steps if you can just listen to someone who's done all the hard shit and will tell you the right thing to try first. I would definitely say mentorship is like top thing. And then secondly, if you're confident, you have a great idea, just fucking do it. Like sell something, get something done. And once you do that, you'll get some reps under your belt and you'll have experience no one else can take from you. Either way, I think is valuable, but just going at it, like you gotta live and breathe it a little bit for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned it's important to test any idea on the market. What are the good ways of testing ideas on the market if you don't have an existing customer base or you have in status? I know there's crowdfunding, which is a pretty good indicator whether people want your product, but then you get the commitment to actually fulfill the promise if you get funded. And it doesn't work as a test, but more as a crowdfunding. But what would be a good strategy to just test your product?
Someone did this really well. I forget the name of the app. It was really popular in high schools. You guys might have heard of it. It went viral. It was like you compliment people in your grade.
YOLO.
It might have been YOLO. I forget the name of it. But the guy who made it's a genius. He's a solo entrepreneur, and he kind of figured that out. And people are trying to figure this out to this day. But his commentary is find a niche. Find one little group of people that needs your product and cater to them only, and like keep it small as long as you can. And they'll tell you what works, what doesn't. And then as soon as someone else has the same problem and they recognize that you're solving it for this one person, it's kind of, if you build it, they will come-ish. But cater to a niche. Like it is, if I were to start a new company today, I would find some little group that needs something solved and I'll start there. Tends to work really well, I think. I only have a few reps under my belt. I'm only on like company 2, but it seems to work.
So say you have like, you have an idea and you're like past the phase of finding somebody else that has it and there's nobody there. Like, would you just go out on a limb and start like building that? Like if it's just strictly software stuff that you know how to do, would you just start building it, or would you find like people to help you with like, I don't know, graphics if you're not good at graphics, or like, would you just jump right in, or would you like, what would you do?
Analyze what you need to do to solve the problem in a minimal way. I found a lot of the time that graphics and stuff are nice, the extra stuff is nice, and it can help you sell, especially to an investor. But version 1, make it ugly, make it horrible, see if solving the problem the way you think it needs to be solved actually does it. And as soon as that's vetted, start building a business plan of like, all right, how many people could use this? How much money can I make off of this? And then how quickly do I need to grow a team with X skills to make this thing come to life? Yeah, it's really important to, again, and this is the most, everyone says this every time, but it's like, so make sure, what problem are you solving? It's like the number one question from any sort of investor. And sorry, I keep it referencing investors, but they're like good at figuring this stuff out and sleuthing it. So I've learned a lot from them. All these rules apply if you want to make a profitable company with no investment as well. But yeah, sorry, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's say you have a project, and how should you approach like a tech stack or figuring out like what you need for something? Because I think just from like you know you have something and you're familiar with a certain library or something, but you don't really know if it's the best thing. How do you really approach like determining like what technology you're gonna use?
I'm really glad you said that. I struggle with this a lot because I love choosing my favorite thing, right? I'm obsessed with some piece of technology at that time, and I'm like, let's just do it this way. It's not always the right answer. From when you're a bigger company, you need to, one of the biggest things is who knows the technology that you want to use, because you need to hire for it. That's kind of where we're at right now. We're using technology that I wanted to use maybe some hotter new technical stuff, but dumbed it down a little bit because no one knows the new stuff. But everyone knows Node now. When I was first starting, less people knew Node and more people knew PHP and stuff. But anyway, I would say for version 0.1, 1.0, whatever, use whatever you're comfortable with. And again, like solve the problem as fast and efficiently as possible. You'll be able to rebuild pretty quickly. And then when you start building, you need to start taking account how popular the technology is, if you can hire for it, and yeah, making sure it's actually solving the problem.
What's your opinion about Web3? And do you think you could implement it?
I love the idea. We've been offered some technology to integrate into our account system. Put it back up there so just have a reference. We've been offered specifically right here where it says My Subscriptions. That's kind of a loyalty box that links out to loyalty programs. And Web3, a lot of companies that were Web3, now funding is dribbling out. They're pivoting to loyalty programs specifically because it's a good use case, right? You can have a profile that's tied to you. I guess I'm getting specific, I'm leaning more into blockchain when talking about that, which I don't think is particularly the same thing. But it's a great solution without too many problems yet. And I know, God, I sound like a broken record, but that was the problem with blockchain. It's the problem with Web3 currently has, is centralized systems are really, really efficient. And it's hard to justify outside of security reasons why Web3 or blockchain is important. I will say it will be more important as time goes on. We get better and better at decrypting things, and security might become a bigger priority if more people start getting hacked. Blockchain could be used. Web3 might become more popular. But right now, it's not a big enough issue to tackle or to get funding for. I like it though. I wish it was more popular.
Do you think there would be any time where you would have to implement that kind of security?
Certainly.
In the future, maybe like a couple of years?
Certainly, I do think it's possible. So we see a lot of scrutiny with personal identifiable information, PII, from Europe. They're creating new laws every day about what you can and can't do with personal information, how it needs to be encrypted. It's kind of a pain in the ass. But if anyone was gonna push for like the highest levels of security, which I do think things like blockchain offer, I think it would be them, but we'll see. It might be too taxing to ask for. A lot of people run on a lot of old systems, and it'd be hard to update those things.
This might be kind of a dumb question, but like, how do you make like that hard sell? Like, whether it be like investors or like customers or like potential users, like how do you like? Because I suppose you could just like come up with an idea, have some like evidence, and then show it to them. But like, how do you have something more so that way like they're actually compelled to like listen to you and follow you?
I wish Joe was here. He's really good at that. But I'm always the evidence guy. I'm always like, here's a spreadsheet. It's irrefutable. Here's where I got all the information. Just say yes. Like, it'll make this happen. Say yes. Just say yes is a phrase I learned from Joe, where it's you provide no reasons for them to say no, essentially, and only reasons say yes, and then you clearly state the benefit. That's usually enough. Anything beyond that, I would say, is like salesman tactics of you see this every day with fast food. It's like the small thing of soda is $3, the medium is $3.20. You're gonna take the $3.20. That's a sales tactic. It's a mind trick. Those things are used regularly in the sales cycle.
Or you could, oh, sorry.
No, please.
Or you could go the opposite way if you're in the store and get a small thing and just fill it up.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, now I need to buy this.
You
It's a hack.
You beat the system. Yeah, it's just traditional sales tactics do work. I would say if you, I'm trying to think of what we did, especially with our initial investors, to really run it home. Yeah, clearly stating the benefit. Like the before and afters were huge for us. So just showing like what it is currently, what it could be, the price point, and the fact that wouldn't you believe that someone would pay more if they had this experience on your site, and getting them over that line of belief was the important part and the goal of our initial pitches. Yeah, not the best answer. This is not my expertise. Joe would have a different answer, and I'm sure he'd have some silver tongue way of explaining it. But
What do you do when you like, I know like a lot of people get this way, but like you have like a really good idea, you've like been working on it for like a couple of weeks, and then like you're to the point where like you've hit like a roadblock in every single like way that you've went. You're just starting to get like burnt out because you're doing like so much research trying to fix the problems instead of just like doing what you wanted to like just make what you wanted to make and be done.
The fun part ends, and that section of creating sucks. It consistently sucks. I feel it too whenever I'm like starting a side project or helping someone else with a project. There will always be this lull. I would suggest putting a time frame on it to fight through and say, if this doesn't work in the next week, I'll drop it. But as soon as it starts to suck, make a time frame, commit to it, don't stop. And if you feel good at the end of that, do another period of time with a goal. Do that and keep doing that. And the moment you don't have a goal to set for yourself, or you really don't feel willing to set that goal, you're done. And you should move on to the next thing. But yeah, fighting through it is the thing most people don't do. So if you can get past it, you're one of the few that can execute. And then you can get to the next stage, which is the market. That's the type. Cool.
Unrelated to just everything, do you play chess?
Not great, but I've played. Why, are you a good chess player?
I don't know, just, yeah.
What's your rank?
I'm like top million.
No shit.
Yeah.
What's your rating?
I'm like a little over 1,400. Like, yeah.
Online or?
Online, yeah, I'm not over the whole. Oh, you can
Do you have a chess player?
You just have a chess club here.
Yeah, I'm part of it.
Nice, dude. That's sick. I was in chess club in like second grade and I cried.
I used to play when I was younger, go to tournaments, and I'm like, these guys are too good. So I dropped out and then got back into it like a year ago.
Hell yeah, chess is fun. I really like chess.
I know someone who got like 24 minutes.
I was gonna say, there's one kid, he graduated 7 years ago, but he still comes to the club, and he's just insane. Like, he'll put a minute on his clock and he'll give you 10 minutes and he'll still beat you. Like, broken just things like that.
Love that. That's sweet.
You mentioned that you prefer Vue.js as a framework for content. Can you justify that or elaborate?
Not anymore. Vue 2 was a beautiful, elegant solution to the front end. Vue 3 was an absolute train wreck, and it's not. It's actually, I still think it's one of the best. It's the argument of, is easier to read more important than performance? I will always say easier to read is more important. And I think Vue 2 was really easy to get people into. I could have people helping on my front end systems at Loop like that. But you get into React or you get into any of these other frameworks that have been Angular, and it's a harder learning curve, and that alone will keep you away from something. I'm all about ease of use. That extra little bit of performance can come in different ways than like your main frameworks. There's always tricks, right? But yeah, I don't like Vue anymore. I started falling in love with Svelte. If you guys have seen Svelte, it's amazing. And then they just announced that they're doing the same thing React is with like a hook thing they're called ruins. I don't know why everyone keeps making the same mistakes. I'd have to start a framework. I don't know. Cool, guys. Well, how much more time do we have? I can stay here forever.
So we're at 7, so if people want to stay, we can keep talking.
We have room until 7:30 technically.
Cool.
So,
What else is new? What's cool at OC?
So I'm sorry, when it comes to execution, what are the top 5 programs you would choose to start?
As far as like programs I would use to help start a company
Or maybe with a prototype.
a prototype, I'm currently changing my stack right now because I have a folder I constantly use for like just my demo of I want to make something. If you guys have heard of Bun, it's a new JavaScript runtime. It's really freaking fast. I love it. It's a package manager, all those things bundled into one. So my back end is Bun. My front end, I will use Svelte still, not the newest one that has the stuff I don't like, but the version before that. I will usually use a cloud database, so I don't have to set one up. I use something called PlanetScale a lot. This is a free tier. It's really easy to use. You just plug the package into your program and you can access the database from there. It's really all I need, and get going then.
Can you talk a little more about the databases you're using? Because right now I'm working on a project, we have a database, and we have this kind of issue where some of our users can't access our stuff in like different countries, and like I've been working with people for like 2 or 3 weeks and they haven't been able to figure it out. And I'm like almost 100% sure that it's not me, but I'm not like, it could be me, but I don't know for sure.
Welcome to the life of a developer. That is
So
most of the questions.
So can you just say those again? And then like
I would say so it's a MySQL database. It's called PlanetScale. That's the service I use. Do you want just a list of services I would?
Sure.
Yeah. Google Cloud has offerings that are fantastic. I really love them for a cloud database. You could host your own, which is something I've done in the past. Just host something on a server. I only use GCP. AWS is fine, but I like GCP. Trying to think of another. Depending, what kind of database are you using?
it's like it's called Parse Platform. It's kind of like an object-oriented database.
Okay.
It's for a video game. It's like we have a marketplace where people can, well, what we're doing is we're trying to make 3D creation easier for non-technical creators, and we're making a game engine that's really intuitive to make stuff and then share like whatever you create. And really, the database is just used for like a marketplace and like some simple like user stuff too, like logging in on different devices, being able to share maps they create, and then like download maps that people create.
Why did you end up using this database?
Well, at the time, I really didn't know much, and it just seems like the easiest thing to do.
Cool, great answer. I don't know much about that database, I haven't heard of it. But I would suggest like all coding is either updating data or moving it around. As long as you know what you need transformed and moved, I would just switch the database if something more common. Maybe that is common, I just haven't heard of it, but, you know.
It's not common.
Okay, well, finding something that is well documented and used a lot is really helpful, because then you can get a lot of help, even from ChatGPT these days that suggested all the help articles. You can say, hey, please help me. Which, by the way, AI writes probably like 20% of my code now, maybe even more. Please use it if you haven't. It's an amazing learning tool. Yeah.
So, do you just ask ChatGPT, like, you're just good at asking questions and it like spits out good code, or like, do you have a different way of like using AI to help you code?
So GitHub Copilot in your browser, it's not perfect, but sometimes I'll test if, a good way to test it is I'll make a comment above hand, and I'm like, a function that sorts an array by a certain key or something. And then it will read that, understand it wants that function below, and it'll spit out a function. And I have enough experience now where I can look at it and decide whether it's actually good code or not, and then I'll keep some, throw away the rest. But it helps me kind of not worry about some like basic patterns that I used to have to memorize or relook up. I can just kind of throw it its way, and it'll show me close to the best. And I don't need things to be perfect. As long as it runs and as long as it's readable, I'm happy.
So I know for students, we have Copilot for free.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So are you just doing like the 50 a month thing, or how does that all work?
Yeah, I don't know how much it costs. I put it on the company card.
Oh, okay, fair.
But a nice advantage. But we actually have like GitHub Copilot for business. So I don't want a single developer that doesn't use it in our company, because it is so helpful. And then to kind of finish answering what you're saying, ChatGPT is great for technology you're unfamiliar with. I was playing around, if you've heard of Godot, it's a game engine.
I've heard of it.
Godot is the shit. It's just like, it's just a really, their syntax is JavaScript based, so I'm biased, I like it. But I don't know much about it, and ChatGPT does, and every time I'm stuck of like, how do I perform rotation in code to this 3D object or whatever, it will tell me, it will be mostly right. It's just a good stepping off platform rather than Google, which has gotten worse and worse at deciphering what problem you're trying to solve. But super useful.
Do you use like the ChatGPT, like the ChatGPT Premium, or do you have like I'm just wondering, does that have like an enterprise plan where like it's tangent?
Personal account. I pay for that one myself. It's I just love it. I think it's really useful. We even use it for like every Friday. Something we do as a company is we get online for stand-up, and then we ask a question, like an icebreaker question for everyone that everyone answers, and we try to make it a little deep, try to pull some heartstrings. And I use ChatGPT for that. I just like, give me an emotional icebreaker, and little things like that it really helps with. So you have to think less, which might be the downfall again.
So imagine you guys have competitors.
We did when we started.
Are there more?
We have, no, so about like 4 or 5 people have come up. No one was tackling the account space. Like I said, this is a brand new category. Maybe in some different ways, like loyalty programs, they claim like we're the better account, which didn't make sense. All they were doing was giving you points that no one used. Horrible. Now we've seen a few people pop up, and one of our biggest ones, believe it or not, Shopify themselves has kind of tipped their hat our direction and said, it's a really good idea. So they're not going to be super competitive, we don't think, but we're actively trying to partner with them to avoid any like collisions, so to speak.
your application bases off Shopify, right?
Yes, so we use Shopify's platform. We're built on top of it.
Do you think it's dangerous that your business depends almost entirely on Shopify?
It absolutely is, and investors have told us the same thing. It is a big. So, what I like to tell the investors, I built this thing as a standalone app. This could live on a headless site. It doesn't need to be on Shopify. But we're only working with Shopify because it has the best demographic of merchants. It has a lot of merchants who want this kind of app at this price point, and they have money to spend on it. Once that's not the case, if stuff does change, we are ready to go multi-platform if that happens. So we have a little ace up our sleeve in that regard.
Is that like an analogy, maybe like, maybe a good analogy would be like, you're making a game, you could just make a game and you can make your own launcher, or you could put your game on Steam. Like, if you put your game on Steam, like, yeah, like you're kind of dependent on their, whatever they do, but also at the same time, there's a bigger market, it's a lot easier.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's a good opportunity to make a friend of Shopify. We're bringing them more business. They love that. We can prove that. This is actually only available on a Shopify Plus plan, which is more expensive. And we've gotten people to move over to a Plus plan just for our app. And Shopify loves that. So not much point in attacking us. And you constantly got to put your pieces on the board, so to speak, and make sure you're not in a position to be taken down or seen as less valuable from the people who own you. That's a good question.
You mentioned that Shopify is moving in your direction and making some user experience for their clients. How far are they in this direction?
So they found a niche. It was their customers that wanted business-to-business accounts. So basically, Shopify stores that sold in bulk and to consumers. They wanted to give the ability to have a business account with your store. And instead of building that on their old account system, which is what this is built on, they made a new account system and started testing the waters and said, do you like this? Maybe you can have different custom coupons. And they started experimenting. That was the first red flag for us. That was like, they care about the space. They're coming for us. And they found a niche. They're starting there and they're going to bleed over. Their business-to-business accounts are live. They work well. They don't interfere with us. But I assume from what I've heard that things will continue to expand and probably bleed over into the consumer realm. But we'll see. We'll see what that looks like too, because it doesn't have to be like a replacement of this. They do a lot of Shopify. Another reason I like working with them is they do a lot of stuff to kind of arm the rebels was their motto. They want developers to be building on their platform. So they're not actively shutting anyone out. They have a returns API now that's a lot like Loop, but Loop is still around. Loop still does really well. Loop helps large enterprise merchants on Shopify fix things that Shopify couldn't do just with their single API. Sorry, a lot of e-commerce babble. I'm used to talking about this every day. I don't know how much resonates, but